Hey there, welcome back to another video. Just like last time, my name is Nick. Let's jump into it. I'm sure some people are going to be excited to know that I'm not talking about such a niche sport in this video like lacrosse or rugby. I'm actually talking about a sport that people watch, football. Unfortunately, Bills fans, I am not talking about you guys in this video. Just wearing the Josh Allen jersey because he's the only quarterback I have a jersey for. But so, what better time to make 5 QB predictions than while we're still in the preseason? Let's just jump on into it. My first prediction is I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will be worse off this season than they were last season with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. The Steelers finished last season with a record of 10-7, and they made it to the playoffs. Justin Fields started 6 of those games, played 10 games in total, had a record of 4-2, had 106 completions on 161 pass attempts for 1,106 passing yards. He had 5 touchdowns and 1 interception, and then rushed for 5 touchdowns. Russell Wilson started 11 games. He went 6-5, had 214 completions on 336 pass attempts for 2,482 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Last season, Aaron Rodgers started all 17 games for the Jets. He went 5-12, had 368 completions on 584 pass attempts. He had 3,897 passing yards and had 28 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. I might get some flack for this, but I think there is a good quarterback in Justin Fields. I got to see him play live when he was with Chicago, but I think there's something there. I just don't think he's quite found the right situation for him in the NFL. I don't know. Could be totally wrong. That's just my opinion. But I think the Steelers are crazy to pass up on a player that had such a small sample size for them to go with a guy that's turning 42 at the end of the season. I think it's safe to say that Aaron Rodgers' best years may be behind him at this point, and I'm not sure what this move does for the Steelers. Also, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both signing in the Giants with the Giants. I think that's more of a mentor role for Jackson Dart more than anything. I'm not sure that they're expecting much out of Russell Wilson, but I think Justin Fields is going to be the player to keep your eye on this season because I think that might come back to bite the Steelers. Prediction number 2. Dad, I'm sorry if you're watching this one. I think Jalen Hurts will have an MVP caliber season. Believe it or not, in the 92 years that the Philadelphia Eagles have been in existence, they've never had an MVP player, like a player win the MVP on the offense or the defense. I think there are actually 2 players that could probably win the MVP, the other being Saquon Barkley, depending on how he does after last season. But Jalen Hurts, main person that I'm talking about winning the MVP. He started 15 games last season, had a record of 12-3 in those 15 games, had 248 completions in 361 pass attempts, had 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, had 2,903 passing yards. He also rushed for an additional 630 yards and had another 14 rushing touchdowns. I think Jalen Hurts is an MVP. Maybe this season. I hope so. This is also on top of everything that he did in the playoffs because they did win the Super Bowl last year. So I think there's an MVP caliber player in Jalen Hurts. I do. Prediction number 3. I think the Seattle Seahawks will be very unhappy with the situation in their QB room, which is led by Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold signed a 3-year contract in March, and the Seahawks have an option out of this contract after the first year. I don't know why you would put an option like that into your contract with a player that you're bringing in to be a starting quarterback. Also, Sam Darnold, only one team away from qualifying for my list of the Journeyman series. So if he does get optioned, if Seattle does opt out of this contract, he ends up somewhere new, you can bet your butt there's going to be a Sam Darnold Journeyman video. Last year, Sam Darnold had a complete career year with the Vikings. He started all 17 games, he went 14-3 as a record, had 361 completions on 545 passing attempts, had 4,319 passing yards, had 35 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. The only other QBs on Seattle's roster right now are Drew Lock, who spent most of last season, as the backup to the Giants until Daniel Jones got cut. And then Drew Lock was getting those starts. And Jalen Milroe, who was the starter at Alabama last year. So we'll see what comes of this whole Seattle QB situation, but I think they are going to end up being very upset thinking about how they did with Geno Smith, and now that he's in Vegas, they brought in Sam Darnold. I'm not saying it was a fluke for Sam last year with Minnesota, but it might have been a fluke last year. Prediction number 4, I would like to start with a statement. I do not wish injury upon anybody, and this is not me wishing that this player gets injured in this upcoming season. This is just a prediction that I have made off of what has happened in the past. Thank you. I think the Dolphins will be forced to reevaluate their QB situation for the long term at the end of this season. Tua is entering his 6th season in the NFL. At this point, it doesn't seem to matter. It's not a matter of if he's going to get a concussion. It kind of seems like when throughout the season he might get a concussion. He's had 4 documented concussions since 2019, and they're saying there could have been a 5th one tossed in there somewhere. Now, when Tua is playing, Tua shows glimpses of that guy that was drafted 5th overall by the Dolphins. It's when he's not playing that the Dolphins have a real concern of who their quarterback is going to be. Last season, Tua played 11 games, had a record of 6-5, 291 completions on 399 pass attempts. He had 2,867 passing yards, had 19 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Here's the thing that really gets me. The current backups to Tua are Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers. And I wouldn't be surprised if Quinn Ewers ends up starting on a UFL team in the spring once the NFL season's over. Like, they really don't have a plan if anything were to happen to Tua, which I don't want to see. I just think Dolphins, you got to think realistically. If something does end up happening and Tua misses a large portion of this season and the Dolphins end up with a top 5, top 10 pick, I don't see how they don't go for a young quarterback right out of college. So that's just my opinion. I don't want Tua to get hurt. Thank you. My 5th and final prediction for this season. If you're anybody that I have talked to and had a football conversation with since before the draft, you know my opinions on this player that I'm about to bring up. I think Shedeur Sanders will get playing time, and I think he will surprise people. I'm not saying he's going to be the next late round pick, diamond in the rough type situation like Tom Brady or Brock Purdy. I think he will do better than his haters are making it seem, me included. Where my problem comes in is Shedeur Sanders spent his entire college career playing for his dad as his head coach, and I just think that If he really wanted to prove that he was that good, you would carve your own path under a coach that's not your father. He just seemed very arrogant for going one game above 500 at Colorado. And, there's a reason Shane Gillis was making jokes about him at the ESPYs. I am here to say I think Shedeur Sanders might do okay in the NFL when he inevitably gets playing time this season, because Joe Flacco was just named the starting quarterback for week 1, and I don't think that's going to last throughout the season. So at this point, I believe Shedeur Sanders only has the one preseason game played. I'm recording this in between week 2 and week 3 of the preseason. So his stats for that game were 14 completions on 23 pass attempts, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I don't see how he doesn't. We're talking about a franchise that has had 40 different quarterbacks since 1999. So there you go. Let me know what you think about my predictions. We will be revisiting this topic at the end of the season when all the awards and all the regular season games are done, and I can sit down and look at all the stats, see if I was actually right about any of them. All right, until next time, see you later.